Volume 2, Book 4, Varennes. Chapter 1. Easter at St. Cloud. The French monarchy may now, therefore, be considered as, in all human probability, lost. So decide, O Queen. Poor Louis can decide nothing. Execute this flight project, or at least abandon it. So, indecision is the worst enemy of the monarchy at this moment. It's going to be up to the Queen to be the decisive actor here, because Louis is a flounderer, and he is one who waits on someone else to do something for him. Since the day of the poniards, we have seen unlimited patriotism openly equipping itself with arms. But it is martyrdom without sincerity. The municipality invokes the principles of toleration, grants dissident worshippers to the Church of Theatins. Monday, the 18th of April, is come. The Easter journey to St. Cloud shall take effect. So this is the traditional Easter journey to St. Cloud that the royal family would make. Lafayette comes up with the aide-de-camp, an oratory pervading groups. Tassez-vous answer the groups, the king shall not go. They don't want him out of Paris, they don't want him out of their sights. Nous ne voulons pas que le roi parte. Patriots in the passion of terror bellow round the royal carriage. Order cannot be heard, cannot be followed. National Guards know not how to act. Lafayette mounts, dismounts, runs, haranguing, panting, on the verge of despair. In the end, the king must keep his Easter in Paris, meditating much on this singular posture of things. So, even an attempt to go out to a pilgrimage to St. Cloud for Easter, which is in the tradition of the French monarchy, is now prohibited to him. So upon this, you need to think, you're not at home in the Tuileries. Mirabeau is now gone. You are truly now, Louis, a prisoner of the revolution. Chapter 2. Easter at Paris. Since March 1790, it would seem there has hovered a project of flight before the royal mind. Better to adopt that constitution of theirs, executed, to show all men that it is inexecutable. So this is a French strategy. So you sit, you wait, and the National Assembly gives a constitution, and then as you wait, you just watch it unfold, unravel, and it becomes ungovernable. And then you step in. But the problem is they can't make the constitution. So that strategy is not working because you're waiting too long. Grant that poor Louis were safe with Bouillé that we had in part 9, Bouillé out in Nancy. What on the whole could he look for there? He goes as Rabelais did when dying, to seek a great maybe. Je vais chercher un grand peut-être. Which is, of course, reference to the French writer Rabelais of Gargantua and Pantagruel fame. In the Morbihan of Brittany, without scourging armed peasants are up, roused by pulpit drum. They know not why. General Dumouriez, who has got mission thitherward, finds all in sour heat of darkness. Holiness Pius VI has seen good to excommunicate Bishop Talleyrand. So Talleyrand's been excommunicated. Dumouriez has to go to the provinces such as Brittany to quell rebellions. This is the sort of nature of France as they have their Easter at Paris. Religion herself, mourning for such things, may after all ask, what have I to do with them? What the difference between orthodoxy or my doxy or heterodoxy or thy doxy might here be. So Carlyle is saying here is there is going to be a sculpting of a new religion with this formulation of the constitution. Talleyrand's been excommunicated by the Pope, but that almost doesn't matter anymore. Talleyrand is becoming a bishop into the new clergy, this new secular clergy, which is being formed around the National Assembly. And what do they do? The Maidoxy is that of an august National Assembly, and can it equalize the extent of the bishoprics? Thy doxy, if thou be dissident, is that he cannot. Human ill nature needs but some homoiousion iota, or even the pretense of one, and will flow copiously through the eye of a needle. Thus always must mortals go jargoning and fuming. This is the sort of allusion to the homoiousion that he mentions in his lecture 2 of hero and hero worship on Muhammad, where the Eastern churches are homoousion or homoousion, and there's an I in the difference, and it basically all boils down to how you perceive Christ in the nature of the Trinity. But he calls the I the iota, the I between homoousion and homoousion. But really, it's two sects bickering about the tiniest little difference. And then what happens in his lecture 2, of course, Muhammad sweeps in with a clear and distinct vision and a force of nature that these stultified old bickering sects can't deal with. That's at least the take he's getting here. Auto de Fe of Saint Erugues was on the 4th of May, 1791. So just we move on to the Auto de Fe, the Act of Faith, reverence to heretics burnt during the Inquisition there. Chapter 3, Count Fersen. Bouillé, on his side, is making a fortified camp at Montmedy, gathering royal, Allemand, and all manner of other German and true French troops thither. So Bouillé is expecting an attempt to flee from the royalty. We observe, however, that Count Fersen is often using his ticket of entry. This is a ticket of entry to the Tuileries, which surely he has clear right to do, a gallant soldier and Swede, devoted to this fair queen. So Count Fersen is a member of the Swedish nobility, or soldier class at least, and has access to Marie Antoinette, and is a sort of confidant. There was even rumours that they were lovers and so on. So he's going into the Tuileries in and out, and Carlyle's just noticing this character. He's going to play a role in their attempt to get out of Paris. A passport has been procured for her. Fersen has likewise purchased a chaise fit for two. We are on the 20th of June, 1791. So between the Auto de Fe, and now this Count Fersen has been scheming the flight. In the Rue de l'Echelle, hard by the Carrousel and the outgate of the Tuileries, watch thou Gouvion, with Argus's vigilance, for, of a truth, treachery is within these walls. Dust shall not stick to the hoofs of Fersen, crack, crack. The glass coach rattles, and every soul breathes lighter. But is Fersen on the right road? So Fersen has made his escape. Crack, crack, we go, incessant, through the slumbering city. Thus Fersen drives through the ambrosial night. Sleeping Paris is now all on the right hand of him, silent except for some snoring hum. And now he is eastward as far as the Barrière de Saint-Martin, looking earnestly for Baroness de Korff's Berline. So the Berline is going to be the getaway vehicle. Swift thou, deft Fersen, and may the heavens turn it well. Baroness de Korff's Berline, the royalty of France, bounds off, forever as approved. Deft Fersen dashes obliquely northward, through the country, towards Bougre. The future then is all vague. What if we reach Bouillé? If we do not reach him, towards Orient and the lands of hope then. So the royal family has snuck into this Berlin and has exited Paris, as if it is just Fersen exiting his usual visit. Chapter 4, Attitude. An august National Assembly did on this seeming doomsday surpass itself. Never, according to historian eyewitness, was there seen such an imposing attitude. The Côte Droite sits dumb, afraid of the lanterne. Majesty has been abducted or spirited away, enlevé, by some person or persons unknown. So obviously it doesn't take long until the National Assembly is wind of this. Right side of the chamber are kind of stuck in their tracks, and this is the problem a revolutionary has when he then sits on the right side of the chamber, of a revolutionary chamber that he has helped create, because he has none of the energy now. The monarchy has stolen away in an attempt to fly. And because you sit on the right of the chamber, well, if you say anything out of line, if you're seen to be saying something more royalist now, because there's been a plot, you could find yourself on the lanterne, death. By such sublime calmness, the terror of the people is calmed. These gleaming pike forests, which bristle, fateful in the early sun, disappear again. The far-sounding street orators cease, or spout milder. Thus Paris, sublimely calm in its bereavement. So is it calm or is it stultified? Is it without engine because Mirabeau has exited the scene? So who's going to claim that new place of sort of kingship within the National Assembly? Perhaps we may say the most terrified man in Paris or France is, who thinks the reader, sea-green Robespierre. Double paleness with a shadow of gibbets and halters overcast the sea-green features. It is too clear to him that there is to be a Saint Bartholomew of patriots, that in 24 hours he will not be in life. So this is quite an insight into the character of Robespierre, who, sitting on the left, he doesn't need to be silent, but he kind of is silent because he realizes if the plot happens, if they reach Bouillé, or they don't know where they're going at the moment, but if they reach Austrians or old ancien regimes from other countries and come in and reimpose it, Robespierre knows he is for the pike. And what it reveals about his mindset really is Robespierre is already in a do or die mentality here by the summer of 1791, whereas Mirabeau was going to the Queen and trying to conciliate. Always think of the Bouillé uprising. The Mirabeau managed to keep things in check and put down the mutiny, and was happy for the assembly to do so. But Robespierre knows he needs to push entirely through with his agenda, or else he's going to die. So he's got nothing to lose. Chapter 5: The New Berline. Young Rameuf, as we've said, is off early towards Valenciennes. Distracted villagers seize him towards Metz to track the New Berline and gallops of Frank Etrier. So while this Berline makes its way off, there's a bit here on the background of Fersen and his ticket of entry. So in February 1787, Fersen was secretly appointed by King Gustavus III as a special envoy to the court of France. He became a close friend of Marie Antoinette, and rumors circulated that they were lovers. And of the Berline, well, the royal family obtained funds and passports through a friend of Fersen's, Anne Christine, Baroness von Korff, hence the Korff Berline, who had recently travelled from Paris to Frankfurt with her children and sister. So that's sort of more details of how they have escaped in this Berline. So miserable New Berline, why could not royalty go in some old Berline, similar to that of other men? So the problem is they've gone out in the New Berline, and it's too suspicious. It's too eye-catching. The bodyguard courtiers, in their yellow liveries, go prancing and clattering, loyal but stupid, unacquainted with all things. Stoppages occur and breakages to be repaired at étages. King Louis too will dismount, will walk up hills and enjoy the blessed sunshine. So there's not enough urgency in this escape. I think they've gotten outside the main bounds of Paris, and suddenly he believes he's king of his land again, but he's really not that far. He needs to keep moving. Royalty, not in a minute of these hours, but is precious. On minutes hang the destinies of royalty now. So typically Carlyle wants to inject the energy. What are you doing, man? Going for these country walks while you're trying to make an escape, for heaven's sake. At the Mont Midi, at the end of it, brave Bouillé. An electric thunder chain, which the invisible Bouillé, like a father Jove, holds in his hand. For wise purpose, brave Bouillé has done what man could. Has spread out his electric thunder chain of military escorts onwards towards the threshold of Chalons. Consider the suspicious nature of patriotism. Suspicious, above all, of Bouillé the aristocrat. So Bouillé is sort of sending out messengers to go west as the carriage tries to go east for a reconnaissance. But the patriots around the area are already suspicious of Bouillé from his early quelling of the uprising, of the mutiny at the garrison in Nancy. Chalons sends forth exploratory pickets of national volunteers towards his hand, which meet exploratory pickets. So his men meet sort of National Assembly volunteers, loyal patriots from Chalons. Just everyone's trying to keep an eye on each other here to make sure there's no shenanigans. Army no Berline. And near now is that San Menehul, which expelled us in the morning, with its 300 national fusils. So there's always this strange chaotic element to a dash for freedom that requires organization that we're kind of not seeing here. They're running around. Has this place seen the Berline? Has that place seen the Berline? We will make direct for the distant village of Varennes. So they move from Chalon to Varennes in search for it. The great road, however, is got hushed again into a kind of quietude. Indolent dragoons cannot, by any quartermaster, be kept altogether from the dram shop, where patriots drink and will even treat eager enough for news. So the main arteries from Paris do still contain all these patriots. They're drinking in the outhouses and the inns and so on these main artery roads that feed in to Paris, like a spoke and a wheel model. And so Louis wandering around these hills, he's not in a safe place yet at all. And these patriots are drinking and they're still attentive. Like, suspicion has been around France for 2 years now, since the Revolution. Chapter 6, Old-Dragoon Drouet. Enter the character Jean-Baptiste Drouet, master of the post here. An acrid, choleric man, rather dangerous looking, still in the prime of life, though he has served in his time as a Condé dragoon. So similar to a sort of Captain d'Auguste, Carlyle loves introducing these characters who have these key parts to play in these episodic moments that just kind of keep the revolution ticking towards its ultimate destiny. Drouet is an acrid patriot too, was at the Feast of Pikes in Paris. But still, despite all this setup, there is no Corfe Berline to make its appearance. The great sun flames broader towards setting. Nor is the postmaster Drouet unobservant all this while, but steps out and steps in, with his long flowing nightgown in the level sunlight, prying into several things. So there's sort of a wait, there's tension, but then finally, the new Berlin rolls, and Drouet and Guillaume gallop after it. And Dandoin's trooper gallops after them. So what really happened here is the carriages conveying the royal family on their flight to the frontier stopped at his door on the evening of June 21st, 1791, and the passengers, they were travelling under the assumed names of the passports that they had obtained, were recognized by Drouet, who immediately took steps which led to their arrest and detention upon reaching Varennes. But we're not there yet. He's still kind of searching after them. He's recognized them. They've gone on ahead, and he chases after them. And then Bouillé's men chase after him in turn. Chapter 7, The Night of Spurs. The thick shades of night are falling. Postilions crack and whip. The Royal Berline is through Clermont towards Varennes. The Corfe Berline, fairly ahead of all this riding avalanche, so there's sort of more people are copping onto what's getting on here, and there's almost this trail coming after them at this point, reach the little paltry village of Varennes about 11 o'clock. Young Bouillé, Bouillé's own son, with his escort of hussars, was to have ready, for in this village is no post. So there's no sort of general post, there's no Drouet equivalent in this village. Young Bouillé, silly, stripling, thinking the matter over for this night, has retired to bed. Sort of crucial decision mistakes in these moments upon which dynasty hangs. Miserable. For 35 minutes, by the king's watch, the Berline is at a dead stand. So they're kind of waiting for Bouillé's own son, and he's gone to bed for the night thinking it hasn't arrived. So they're in a stasis. Round hat arguing with churn boots. Tired horses slobbering their meal and water. Meanwhile, there is a king's ransom to be had, and the village of Varennes lies dark and slumberous, a most unlevel village of inverse saddle shape as men write. O Louis, O hapless Marie Antoinette, fated to pass thy life with such men. Phlegmatic, Louis. Art thou but lazy, semi-animate phlegm, then? To the centre of thee, king, captain general, sovereign, frank. So Carlyle just spelling out again how Louis is just a degenerative state of the old kings of Franks. There was, Charlemagne, and all the way down through him was this line of greatness, but it has ended in this Louis, this pathetic figure, who won't act because Bouillé's own son doesn't appear, so he just sits there. And waits while people are on his tail. You need to be decisive, And even if things don't go to plan, which they're not necessarily going to go to plan during an attempt to fly, right? This plot of fleeing, of course, they're not always going to go well. You need to be a decisive actor in the middle of it, not someone who just sits and waits. There's a king not the power which all beggars have of travelling unmolested on his own highway. Louis faring on, some few steps awakening the young Bouillé, awakening relays and hussars. Triumphant entry with cavalcading, high brandishing escort and escorts into Montmedy. And the whole course of French history is different. Young Bouillé or Louis. It's an interesting one to know who is at fault there. One retires early, the other just stays waiting rather than going to seek out Bouillé. That's what Carlyle's saying here. If you had gone and sought out Bouillé, he would have raised the hussars and you could have got to Montmedy where the older Bouillé was. But the village will sting. It will not lie slumbering for long. Old-Dragoon Drouet is our engineer and generalissimo. Gagula Choiseul, now also Count Damas, and all the Varennes officiality are with the king. The king can give no order, form no opinion, but sits there. Young Bouillé, roused by this Varennes tocsin, has taken horse and fled towards his father. Brave Bouillé, son of the whirlwind, he saddles royal Allemande, speaks fire words, such as the Night, deserving to be named, of Spurs. So the Night of Spurs, where the chapter title gets its name. At 6 o'clock, two things have happened. Lafayette's aide-de-camp, Remeuf, riding a Franc-Étrier on that old herb merchant's route, quickened during the last stages, has got to Varennes. That royalty shall forthwith return Parisward, that there be not infinite bloodshed. So, Lafayette, kind of the last stand of the middle ground, now that Mirabeau has exited the scene, his man, Remeuf, has reached Varennes and says, just go back to Paris, we can calm down the situation. There does not need to be bloodshed. Royal Allemande to the gallop then, and vanishes, swearing, en jurant, 'tis the last of our brave Bouillé. So the gig is kind of up now. Drouet catches up to them. There can be, get them back, let's keep everything calm, and then Bouillé, news reaches him when his son reaches Montmedy that it has fallen apart. Too many people were onto it, and by the time the young Bouillé knew that the king was there in the town, it was over. He couldn't intervene. So Bouillé then leaves. Within sight of Varennes, he, having drawn bridle, calls a council of officers, finds that it is in vain. King Louis has departed, consenting, so he consents to Remeuf, amid the clangour of universal storm bell. 10,000 answering him with a shout of mockery. The new Berline lumbering Parisward, its wary, inevitable way. Northward, towards uncertainty, and the Cimmerian night, towards the West Indian Isles, for with thin emigrant delirium the son of the whirlwind cannot act. Towards England, towards premature stoical death. Not towards France any more. This is the fate of Bouillé. Honour to the brave, who, be it in this quarrel or in that, is a substance and articulate speaking piece of human valour, not a fascinating hollow spectrum and squeaking gibberish shadow. One of the few royalist chief actors, this Bouillé, of whom so much can be said. Brave Bouillé too then vanishes from the tissue of our story. Story and tissue, faint, ineffectual, emblem of that grand, miraculous tissue and living tapestry named French Revolution, which did weave itself then in the very fact on the loud-sounding loom of time. The old brave drop out from it, with the strivings and new acrid Drouets of new strivings in colour come in. So Bouillé represents the old, and he's on the way out. And a man like Drouet, with that patriotism, he represents the new, that alertness, that ability to recognize and tell and inform. They come in. This is the manner of the weaving of the French Revolution. Chapter 8. The Return. So then our grand royalist plot of flights to Metz has executed itself. So really Louis decides to go back without much of a fight, doesn't he? Powder mine of a Séance Royale on the 23rd of June, 1789. Then came fervent opera repast, with flourishing of sabres, and O Richard, O my king, So Carlyle's sort of going back through the failed attempts of royalism to curb this revolution. The Bouillé armament ends as the Broglie one had done, and Mirabeau lies dead in the pantheon of great men. This is an ignominious royal procession, then. Doom hanging over it, most fantastic, yet most miserably real. Our august assembly, which is sitting at this great moment, sends out deputations of rescue. On the king saying France cannot be a republic, answered, no, it is not ripe yet. On Monday night royalty went. On Saturday evening it returns. Chapter 9. Sharp shot. Dispose it, resolutely answers Robespierre. So he's thinking about what to do with the kingship here. Had Philippe d'Orléans not been a caput mortuum, answer with loud vehemence all manner of constitutional royalists. This is the clamour in the National Assembly when the royalty returns. What is to be done? Terror struck at the unknown abysses on the verge of which, driven thither by themselves mainly, all now reels ready to plunge. When shams and delusions, long soul-killing, had become body-killing, got the length of the bankruptcy in a nation, a great people rose, and with one voice said in the name of the highest, shams shall be no more. So many sorrows and bloody horrors endured, to be yet endured through this dismal coming centuries. Were there not a heavy price paid and payable for this name, total destruction of shams among men? So really, the king, the queen, the attempt of the constitution, all of these are shams in Carlyle's eyes, and he's just eating into that. Constitutionalists in a body, as we have often predicted, do now recede from the mother society and become fuyants. Fuyants. And that's a crucial term, fuyants. It's going to, from now on, mean the constitutional monarchists and the more right côte droite of the assembly, those who think the revolution has gone enough and are trying to consolidate. So that term kind of comes out of here. Threatening her with, in a nation, the rank and respectability being mostly gone. Petition after petition forwarded by post or born deputation comes praying for the judgment and déchéance, which is our name for deposition. Praying at lowest for reference to the 83 departments of France. Emigration streams with double violence. After this, Friday the 15th of July, 1791, the National Assembly decides in what negatory manner we know. Theatres all close. Bornstones and portable chairs begin spouting. Municipal placards flaming on the walls. Proclamations published by sound of trumpet invite to repose with small effect, and so on Sunday the 17th there shall be a thing seen worthy of remembering. Scroll of a petition drawn up by Brissot, Danton, by Cordelier, Jacobins, for the thing was infinitely shaken and manipulated. Unworking Paris, male and female, is crowding thither. Patriotism, fretting itself in this state of nervous excitability with hypotheses, suspicions, and reports, keeps questioning these two distracted human individuals, and again questioning them, claps them into the nearest guardhouse, clutches them out again, one hypothetic group snatching them from another, till finally, in such extreme state of nervous excitability, patriotism hangs them as spies of Saumutier, and the life and secret is choked out of them forever. So these sort of two men are seen. And this is really the Champ de Mars massacre. And the sort of suspicions and hangings that are coming from it. So 2 days before the National Constituent Assembly issued a decree, so on the 15th, the National Assembly issues a decree that Louis XVI will retain his throne under a constitutional monarchy. And then the Champ de Mars massacre happens 2 days later because of protests, Republican protests in the street, in which Lafayette orders his troops to fire on them. Danton and Desmoulins led this crowd, and they returned with even higher numbers in the afternoon. So the Republican movement took a real dent after this. 200 activists involved were arrested, estimates of about a dozen to 50 dead. And so the signature goes on in a still more excited manner. Some 12 unfortunately shot, reports Bailly, the outgoing mayor of Paris, counting by units, but patriotism counts by tens or even by hundreds. Patriotism flies, shrieking, execrating. So Bouillé says only 12 have died, but some 50, Carlyle is saying, is sort of an inflated number by the Patriots, the Republicans. Patriotism then flies, shrieking, execrating. Camille ceases journalisting, so Camille Desmoulins leaves the scene this day. Great Danton with Camille and Fersen have taken wing for their life. Marat burrows deep in the earth and is silent, so Jean-Paul Marat, another Republican, goes silent. Patriotism has triumphed. One other time, but it is the last. So Lafayette and his patriotism has worked for one last time. But with Louis kept on as constitutional monarch now, there is going to be no more chances for the Constitution if it fails again.